VRLMs with us, I'd like to start by introducing Ms. Cheryl Netto, Managing Director, Group Relationships, JM Financial Limited, and Mr. Mahesh Natarajan, Managing Director and Head of ECM India for Nomura Financial Advisory and Securities India Private Limited. To make the opening remarks, let me invite Cheryl Netto, MD Group Relationships from JM Financial.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of JM Financial, Symbiotec, Pharmalab Management, and the 4 VRLMs, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this press conference for the IPO of Symbiotec Pharmalab. Symbiotec Pharmalab is a research and development-driven, science-based pharmaceutical and biotechnology company with capabilities across 3 platforms: organic chemistry, biotechnology, and complex injectables. The company has 3 complementary verticals as well. That's API products, CDMO services, and complex injectables. The company has held a global leadership position in corticosteroids and steroidal hormones, active pharma ingredients by volume in fiscal year 2026. Let me take you through some of the key highlights of the company as it stands. The company operates 4 API manufacturing facilities with a total manufacturing capacity of close to 585 metric tons for chemical synthesis, 700 KL for fermentation, and 20 million vials for complex injectables. The company also operates 3 dedicated R&D centers in Bangalore, Madhya Pradesh, focusing again on organic chemistry, biotechnology, and complex injectables. It serves over 200 customers in more than 40 countries. The average relationship tenure exceeds 10 years for both the top 5 and the top 10 customers as at the end of this year. And in FY26, the company reported 869 crores in revenue, representing a 15.65% growth over last year, with an EBITDA margin of 26.59% and a PAT margin of 12.6%. Symbiotec Pharmalab is led and founded by Mr. Anil Sathwani, who was just introduced to us, to all of you, and supported by an experienced and very professional management team and very reputed investors, both Motilal and Investment respectively. I'd just like to close with a few details on the IPO. Let me just give you that. The price band for the IPO is 938 to 988 rupees per share, which is a post-money based on a post-money equity valuation of the company of 6,035 to 6,350 crores respectively. The total offer size is 1,757 crores, comprising fresh issue of 150 crores and an offer for sale of 1,067 crores. The anchor opens on 21st August. The issue opens on the 24th of August and closes on the 27th of August. And the shares are likely to be listed on the BSE and NSE on September 1st, 26. As a banker, as JM Financial, and on behalf of all the 4 VRLMs, we are extremely keen, we're extremely happy to be on this IPO, and we look forward to very strong investor engagement, a successful listing, and a continued growth for Symbiotec Pharmalab, and as it takes its leap into the next chapter. I now request Mr. Anil Sathwani of Symbiotec to address the press and share his vision and growth plans for the company. Thank you.
Very good afternoon. Of course, Cheryl has been kind enough to have given so much of details of Symbiotec already, but of course I can today take this opportunity to share my vision, my past, whatever present is, and how the future is looking. So thank you for providing this opportunity. And I'd like to start by saying that a little bit of context on Symbiotec as a company. We are essentially an R&D driven pharmaceutical and biotechnology company, which have achieved the global leadership on steroid and hormones API business, using the intersection of mainly 2 science streams, one the organic chemistry and 2 the biotech fermentation side of it. And at this intersection of these 2 sciences, we have built and maintained a very high quality manufacturing platform with a very high degree of operational discipline and backed up by decades of regulatory compliance, virtually with all the major regulatory bodies across the world. Now, using this strength of global leadership, we have now decided to move and create further growth engines for our future growth trajectory. Should I do this? Now, of course, I continue to believe, having worked in this industry for over 2 decades, that if there is any global competence and leadership that one company has to build, it has to revolve around 3 major ethos around which Symbiotic has revolved. One, of course, is the cutting edge technology, without which nothing moves. And of course, we have to create a global scale which not only caters to your own country's needs, but also the global needs. This is how you achieve the global scale. And besides this, the compliance part is quintessential. So these 3 ingredients that I realized have allowed us to where we are today in the global position. 1, the technology; 2, the scale; 3, the compliance. I'd just like to take a step back and just share my journey, how it actually started back in '94 when I finished my education with chemistry as the essential science that I graduated with, and then went ahead and did my postgraduate in economics and management before I got into so-called the manufacturing, using my father's little capital that time, which became very valuable. And this whole story started with a concept of steroid molecule. Those were all imported products back then. And there are still few steroids that are getting imported. But at that point of time, there was no national manufacturing of steroids back in mid-90s. And I was brought my attention to a steroid molecule, which all started in the backyard of my father's clinic. And luckily permitted me, and with the help of one of the senior professors who was PhD in organic chemistry, we developed a semi-novel process of steroid molecule conversion. And it took us relentless 2 to 3 years before I could get the proof of concept in our favor. And I looked at my father, who was kind enough to fund me with his initial capital. And this is where the Symbiotic came into existence as a laboratory concept, where we were producing 1 kilo of steroid molecule every day with a very humble, benign start. And it went on for the next 7-8 years before I got into the major mainstream pharmaceutical companies. But it was good enough as a laboratory scale for the mainstream Indian companies, but was never good enough for the multinationals and exports market. And that led me to the first ever industrial scale steroid APIs manufacturing platform. Remember, back in the mid-90s, we set up our first laboratory steroid molecule modules in India. And it's only in 2004 we were able to come with an industrial scale, first ever steroid manufacturing facilities of India. And we got qualified, it took us a few years, we got qualified with some of the MNCs, and we got our US FDAs and European GMP certification eventually. But in this journey of next several years from 2004 onwards, we were humbled by an acquisition offer that came our way. But they insisted, as one major Indian pharma company, they insisted on the majority. I did not feel like ending my entrepreneurial journey so early in my career, and I refused this offer. But as soon as I refused this offer, came private equity in my life. I was fortunate to have a like-minded, my good old friend, late Rakesh Chandran, who looked into my eyes, shared my vision, and put the equity partnership in Symbiotic. And this is where our private equity association started with the likes of late Rakesh Chandran, and then came later on the institutions like Franklin Templeton, Actis, and now I'm sitting with Motilal Oswal and Investment as major private equity partners. And these are all very like-minded people who have bought into my vision, and they've helped me bring the scale to the business that we needed. It was only in 2008 I realized that we were actually importing still a lot of intermediates, critical intermediates from China and America. But because of the Beijing Olympics event, some of these steroid intermediates were put on a temporary exports ban by Chinese government because of the possible misuse of steroidal products into and out users. So I literally, our Symbiotec plant was on a shutdown mode for 3 to 4 months, and I felt very guilty that we are perhaps puppets in the hands of Chinese and I must backward integrate. And with this fire in my belly, I started getting into the full chemistry, which incidentally also combined a lot of biotechnology fermentation. Remember, until that time we were on organic chemistry company. It's only after 2008, due to this Beijing Olympics event, we got ourselves into the fermentation biotechnology science. Learned this science over the next 7 years. I put in a lot of capital, which I was having on the internal accruals, and of course, with the like-minded private equity investors that I just talked about. With this capital, we started building a large-scale fermentation, right from first microbiology lab to pilot fermentation facility to eventual commercial facilities of 50,000 liters of several fermenters. It's only in 2014-15 when we realized that now we have become a company which can take on Chinese competition head on. With this full backward integration, we started producing our valuable steroid, life-saving drugs, steroids and hormones, all the way from soybean-derived sterols. These are essentially farm products. So we started from the farm product called soybean-derived sterol, going through the series of fermentation and series of demanding chemistry steps before we reach to therapeutically active APIs, all these steroid hormones, which are in many senses life-saving drugs, which I'll just explain. But what does this backward integration mean for us? It essentially meant that we are no more dependent on one country, one geography, one supplier. We can control our own destiny now, starting from our own vegetative source. Having said that, this also gave us the make versus buy flexibility, that we can actually manufacture everything on our own, and we can also buy if economics suggest or if other regulatory compliances suggest us to buy products from overseas, we can buy. So this make or buy strategy in our favor helped us walk into many global accounts world over, right from India to Europe to America and different geographies world over. And in relentless pursuit of marketing our products world over, we are now exporting to over 40 different countries world over. We have more than 250 customer base today, from the likes of innovation companies to the big pharma companies and also large generic companies world over. So that's the profile of customers that we have, and we have filed 50 different US DMFs on the back of this make versus buy backward integrated status of Symbiotec. 50 US DMFs with FDA, 25 CPs with European FDA, and it's still counting. And we've become a reckoning force in steroid and hormones API globally. Very difficult business to get into, because it's not one science that you master, not just chemistry. It's also the very difficult biotechnology formulation, which India is not very well versed with. We have to create all the way from scratch. So having built that, I just like to share that what does it mean for our country with this backward integration, and I like to just share my story with you. And often I get very emotional when I talk about the COVID times, right? And remember, the COVID as a pandemic was essentially an inflammation caused by a viral infection in the bronchial system, right? And remember, the steroids are anti-inflammatory drugs, right? So the first line of therapy in COVID was always steroids. Knowingly, unknowingly, people were consuming steroids when they were at homes. They were consuming steroid injectables when they were in hospitals. But nobody thought about steroid shortage in India. Why? Everything else, I remember remdesivir as imported drugs, tocilizumab as imported drugs, were all under shortage, and we were just crying that, oh my God, wish we had these drugs made in India. But remember, the first line therapy was always steroids. And Symbiotec was incidentally an unsung hero, because we were manufacturing API, we were supplying all the Sun Pharmas and Pfizers of this world, right? They were the heroes, not us. But relentlessly, with only 10 to 15% manpower, we were producing 24/7 all these steroids, and never allowed the shortage of steroids to come in India. And this saved lives of millions and millions. And I was so emotional at that point, and maybe I realized, and I said, maybe it is only this pandemic, that Symbiotec was born in India. to serve my own countrymen, to serve the nation. And that humble feeling only can happen in this catastrophe. So essentially this backward integration strategy, today when the whole country is talking about reducing our dependency on pharmaceutical intermediates on one country called China. But we had realized back then in 2008 that we are in a very vulnerable situation. And I as a company could only do it in our backward integration steward performance, right? And here we are. We are no more dependent on one supplier, one country. We are fully self-reliant on this very important drug category called life-saving drugs called steroid hormones. Having said that, what next is always a question for any company, right? Because once you achieve a certain position in an orbit, then there are always this tougher question. Simpler sounding question for what next, but the answer is very complex. But we realize that at the intersection of chemistry and biotechnology, of course, I believe that chemistry is a fairly old science, very mature science, it's not innovating anymore, but it is the biotechnology which holds the potential to solve some of the most pressing issues that mankind is facing today. This is going to be the science of 21st century. This is what I personally believe. And why? We realize that there is a science within the biotech called synthetic biology, which can actually move mountains. There are a lot of products in this world that we are manufacturing using plant sources, using animal sources, and using petroleum sources. We are all dependent on plant animals and petroleum products. But here comes this technology which can allow now to synthesize any enzyme, any protein that is available in nature using the fermentation route, the cloning, the so-called recombinant strain engineering, so-called precision fermentation, whatever you call it. Of course, it sounds easier to synthesize a protein or an enzyme and put it into a chassis or a vector or a microorganism called E. coli or Pichia. But it's way too complex. But this is science has evolved in the last 1 decade, and this is allowing us to now produce many products, right from environmental needs to agricultural needs to food needs to protein needs to pharmaceutical needs, and to also industrial product needs, from moving from plants, animals, and petrochemicals to so-called fermentation. Now, with this potential, I'd just like to share that there is this BCG and McKinsey report that I would like to bring attention to, which is already foreseeing that how this new industrial revolution called bioeconomy is staring at this world and likely to have the capacity demand of over 1 billion liters of fermentation in the next decade or so. And this is where we are finding ourselves in a very sweet spot, that the capability and capacity that we have created in fermentation, using the science that we actually incidentally mastered using steroid and hormones API. But now this science is playing to our advantage in creating a competency, creating an adjacency around some of the biopharmaceutical and some of the biomanufacturing needs using the synthetic biology as an innovative tool. So when we say what next, we said we will invest in fermentation technologies, right? Capacities and capabilities. So we have put in the last 3 to 4 years more than 400 crore rupees in building this 100 scale, which is one of the few companies in India who have achieved this scale of 100,000 liter single fermenter as a greenfield project. So in one sense, we've moved as a lateral integration into a fermentation scale creation, more for CDMO services that we can offer in fermentation space. And also at the same time, I realized that grass is greener on the other side, and we as an API company always are at the lower end of the value chain, 2 to 5%. But we asked ourselves a very straight question: that what does it take? What does it take for us to move into the higher order of this value chain in pharmaceutical? And we realized that we are already so good at lyophilization, freeze drying, and sterility concept as part of our API journey. And why not we convert this competency into complex injectables? So now we also, in the last 5 odd years, we have invested more than 400 crores on a forward integration journey of ours called specialty pharmaceuticals, called complex injectable. And these are the 2 new growth engines that we've created, and I have my colleagues with me who will talk about in their own way, who are heading one the injectable division and 2 the fermentation division. So I would like to give mic for the next few minutes to on my left, Krishna, who's into the injectable side of Symbiotec business, to explain, and later on I will give this mic to Kapil Mishra, who will also explain the fermentation opportunities that we have. Over to you, Krishna.